see it mobilizing Democratic voters, getting more registered, or do you see it flipping Republican or independent votes? What's your strategy?
I think public opinion polling favors the Democratic candidates in all the races just because of the issues that are important to people. People are concerned about affordability and healthcare costs and the cost of gas, and all of those things are working against the current administration. So I think with the right message and the right candidate, we can get out there and win. But the important things to do are continue to register more voters, whether they're Democrats or independents or Republicans, and actually have conversations with them, as many as we can between now and November, about the importance of voting. Because oftentimes in off-year elections, when there's not a president on the top of the ballot, people drop off and don't show up to vote. And this is a very important election that we could decide if we want to continue down this path where we have a lawlessness that's going on, and we have corporate corruption going on at the highest levels of our politics, and we really need to bring balance and accountability back and actually make Congress work better for the people of Iowa and the rest of the United States.
Dave, this is more of a local issue, but the subject of data centers is huge, especially in your district right now and in the Sioux City area. What would you suggest should be done?
I was surprised that the city of Salix actually annexed that land. I hadn't heard anything about it until after it happened. I was also surprised that our all-Republican County Board of Supervisors voted to put a one-year moratorium in place, but that only affects the county land, not the city land in Salix. So what we could do at the federal level, I think we need to make sure that we are addressing environmental standards and making sure that site selection are meeting the best environmental standards, because we don't want people using up all of the water in their community and making it harder for people to have clean drinking water. So, but really citing in location of businesses is really a local level for cities, states, and counties to address. The federal government shouldn't be sticking their nose into deciding where a business can be located.
On the affordability question, to kind of follow up on what Maya asked about, we've seen a lot of administration officials here in Iowa in recent days. We saw the Treasury Secretary, we saw the U.S. Trade Rep, we saw the SBA Administrator Kelly Loeffler here to promote Trump's tax policies, to promote different provisions within the One Beautiful Bill, Trump accounts, no tax on tips and overtime. I guess, how do you plan on maybe countering that narrative from Republicans about tax cuts and the benefits that they would have for working families, manufacturers?
If you make less than $1 million, the tax cut you got last year, I think, should stay in place. So that's reduced taxes on overtime, reduced taxes on tips, reduced taxes on Social Security. The Trump accounts, I think they should be renamed, because presidents shouldn't be naming things after themselves while they're still in office. We should be honoring people for the good service that they do, not naming things while they're in office. But putting up savings accounts for children who are born in the United States, these are all great things to do for young people to make things more affordable. But we also need to fund services that meet the needs of people in our communities. So taking back the tax cuts for the top 2%, the millionaires and billionaires, and actually funding priorities like healthcare and making it more affordable and accessible to everybody, no matter where you live, is what we should be focused on, because those are costs that can't be recouped out of your pocket, because private insurance is continuing to raise rates every year, and without government involvement to address some of the fundamentals of our economy and addressing people who are at the bottom of the income bracket, that could include not only children, like I advocate on behalf of abused children. It also has to do with pregnant women. It has to do with people with disabilities, and it also has to do with seniors who are living in long-term care facilities. And those people oftentimes have no or little income in their lives, and they can't pay higher and higher premiums, copays, and deductibles for insurance. So we've got to do better by the people living in the district, in Iowa's 4th District.
When you talk about restoring Medicaid and other cuts, are you confident that the bill that can be written in a way that President Trump will sign it?
I would be hopeful that any president would actually care enough about the people living in the United States that are struggling day to day to actually fund priorities that make their lives better, whether it's health care or also addressing minimum wages. The federal minimum wage has been stuck since 2009 at $7.25. It's the longest time in American history that our minimum wage hasn't been raised. So if you want people to work more and rely less on government benefits and assistance, why don't you pay them what they're worth? If you live in Sioux City, you can move across the river into Nebraska and make the minimum wage of $15 an hour, which is twice as much. So why would any young person right out of school stay in Iowa if you're not paying them a wage that is decent? So I think the federal minimum wage could also be something that would be a bipartisan effort. It used to be. Terry Branstad repeatedly signed into law minimum wage increases in the state of Iowa, and I think we should do that at the federal level.
You mentioned visiting and then posing for a picture with your opponent at the county fair.
We have not worked on a project before. I was interviewed by the local Chamber of Commerce when I ran for the Iowa House in the past. The local chamber had public forums for local legislators that we appeared at often, but we have not worked together. He has not been focused on the issues that I focus on, which is public safety and advocating for victims of crime, whether that be a sex abuse victim or a child abuse victim. His focus has been on working on behalf of corporations and making sure that they're willing to come, select a location in the Siouxland area, whether that's Nebraska, South Dakota, or Sioux City. So we haven't crossed paths much, but I think that being respectful to one another and not speaking bad about one another, I think is an important priority to put forward so that other leaders start moving in that direction, so we're not always just name calling and saying negative things about one another.
This didn't occur to me until you shared that anecdote. It has to have been forever since someone from Woodbury County represented that part of the state. Is that meaningful in
Yes.
some way?
So when I was deciding whether or not to run, I knew it would be a difficult race getting in. I didn't go into this blind. It's been a long time. So Berkeley Bedell was the last Democrat to represent the extreme northwest part of the state of Iowa. It was the old 6th district when Senator Tom Harkin represented the old 5th district in southwest Iowa. So those are the former representatives that had large parts of the new 4th district. So it's been 40 years. But also over that 40 years time, there has never been a former state elected official who's been a Democrat that's run for office in Congress. If you go back for the last 40 years, they've never had somebody with my experience run for the office. We've oftentimes had people move back into the district that hadn't lived there for years just because they wanted to run against somebody they didn't like. They didn't have somebody who was a community activist that knew the community and worked in the community and lived in the community. But having legislative experience is an important factor for people who want to move on up to Congress. We've voted for former state senator Randy Feenstra, former state senator Steve King. Having legislative experience means something, especially to people who are in the middle and who aren't hard partisans and actually want to see people accomplish something while they're out in DC. And I have that track record of getting things done regardless of party affiliation for all of my constituents in Woodbury County.
Now, I know McGowan's really outpaced you when it comes to political campaign donations. How are you going to try to bridge that gap and get your message out?
We keep trying to fundraise every day. If people who want to donate to Dave Dawson, they go to davedawsonforiowa.com and they can chip $26 into my 26 campaign. And we are surviving on grassroots efforts. I have taken the Political Integrity Index pledge to support the reforms of banning corporate PAC money, overturning Citizens United, banning lobbyists, and all of those things. And I received an A score from them, and my opponent is not, because he has not followed through with that. Most of his donations are coming from much larger donors from out of state. Over half of his donations have come from out of state, and I've been relying mostly on in-state donations. So it is a grassroots effort. And the more we get out there and campaign face-to-face, I think we continue to build support, and hopefully we'll have victory on November 3rd.
The 4th District is heavily agricultural. Josh Turek has criticized Senate Democrats for holding up the Farm Bill out of committee. Based on what you know, would you have voted for either the House version of the Farm Bill or the version that was in the Senate Ag Committee that Democrats blocked?
I am concerned with some of the provisions in the House bill, and I don't like everything that's in the Senate bill that was marked up in committee. But I think it was important for us to make sure that we have markets for our farmers, so I do support year-round E15. So if that was part of the package in the Senate bill, which is my understanding that that was what they were being offered, I think we should have voted for it to move the bill forward, because the Farm Bill has been expired for 3 years, even though we have 2 U.S. senators from Iowa and 2 U.S. House representatives currently on the Ag Committee in both chambers, and they haven't been able to move the needle forward. So we have to do better for our farmers so they can plan long term, because farming markets change from year to year, but you need to have some stability with the government programs and services that they put out, whether it's conservation programs or crop insurance programs. And if we're not doing that for our farmers, I don't know how they plan from year to year and make a living, because input costs are up because of the tariffs, and we need to do better to address the farm economy in our state and help everybody that is in the agricultural community, because it relies not only on farmers on the front line, but also a lot of manufacturers, that farmers are not buying more equipment for their fields because they can't afford it. And so manufacturing jobs in the state of Iowa are also being impacted negatively by not having a long-term farm bill in place.
So the Senate Democrats, they take the position that it's better to just year on year keep extending the 2018 Farm Bill than passing a new Farm Bill that has big food assistance cuts. Why are they wrong?
I did not support the cuts to food stamps because I work with a lot of low-income individuals in my job as a prosecutor who are struggling to get by because food is so much more expensive even than just a year and a half ago, and we need to make sure that that safety net stays in place, and we shouldn't be putting it back onto the states, including Iowa, who has a $1 billion structural budget deficit, and how are they going to make up the difference, or other states like that, how are they going to make up the difference if there are cuts at the federal level to make sure that people have food? We're talking about children, so I don't support that cut, but I think it's important for farmers to know more about this, and we can always come back and address the food stamps in another way at another time. But I think it's important that Congress start long-term budgeting for other things. The last time that Congress passed a year-round budget for all divisions of government for the full year was in 1997, almost 30 years ago. And that was when we were actually bringing down the national debt and had budget surplus because we were doing long-term planning. We need to do more of that.
You've been traveling across the state, holding multiple town halls. What is the turnout at those town halls like, and what is the composition based on partisanship look like? Is it Republicans and Democrats, independents? What does that look like?
We've had a good mix of Democrats, Republicans, and independents. In cold days in January, we might have had 2 people, but we also had big groups of over 50, so it depends on the day of the week. But we've been in some of the smallest, ruralest parts of the state, including Pocahontas County, and we've had people show up at events everywhere. We just need to make sure we continue to talk to as many people as we can. We've had Trump supporters there who left with my yard sign after they heard what I had to say. We've had Republican mayors, like I said, showed up last night in Carroll, and I had a Republican Board of Supervisor up in Lyon County complaining about FEMA being delayed and not addressing the needs of the bridges that have been out since the floods in 2018. You know, I've been learning a lot actually being out on the road and hearing from people and local elected officials in their communities about what the federal government could do to help them out.
In terms of the Democratic Party's coordinated campaign, in your district, other than, I know there are field offices in Ames, Council Bluffs, Sioux City, and I think Fort Dodge, are there any other coordinated campaign offices in the district besides those?
Yes, the Iowa Forward campaign is the most coordinated Democratic effort to elect people across the state since 2012 when Barack Obama was last on the ballot. They have offices in Carroll, they have offices in Storm Lake, they have offices in Fort Dodge, as well as those 3 that you mentioned in Council Bluffs, Sioux City, and Ames. I know that they're looking to try and have an office opened in Denison, possibly, because that's also where Lieutenant Governor candidate Dave Muldauer is from. It's the most offices and most active coordinated effort we've had, and there are, I believe, 12 organizers working across the 4th District currently to help turn out the vote and get people registered and engaged for the upcoming election. Any other questions today?
What are the names of those Iowa Supreme Court cases that you were involved with?
Sure. It was in the interest of AW from 2007, and then I can't remember the child's name, the initials, but it was from 2014.
Okay.
So
it was another in the interest of?
In the interest of, they were both child welfare cases involving abused children. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.